All right. Hi, everyone. Christos Anesti, Christ is risen. So, we're gonna be starting off just the two of us. Just me today because Tina is a little bit late. She was running around doing some errands, so she's gonna be a little bit late coming online. So we're gonna start without her, and we'll see how it goes. So let's see here. We are. I'll give everybody a couple of minutes to come online. It's about 3 people online right now, so we'll see how this new time kind of works for everybody. I know it's a Sunday. I'm assuming people are home because of the quarantine. We thought maybe it would be easier on a Sunday to be able to do this, at least as long as the quarantine lasts, to do these shows on Sundays, because we're at church anyways, and I'm here and you guys are at home watching, and it's easy just to kind of keep it on and continue on with this Q&A after the liturgy. So we'll do Sundays from now on until the quarantine lifts, and then afterwards we'll take a look at switching it to a different day. So we'll see. There's about 4 of you now. So if you have questions, please feel free to type them in as soon as you can, so we can keep the show going. I only have, I think, 2 from the email to answer today. So and of course we'll start with that in a couple of minutes. But I just want to give a little more time for everybody to log on. Now we got 7, so we'll wait for a few more to show up. But those of you who are here, please type in the comment section your questions if you can. Okay? And we'll see. Tina says that she's almost home, so we should have her soon. Doing everything on my own is kind of hard sometimes, trying to manage the emails and the messages and everything, so bear with me. Okay, we got 3 questions. Nothing in the queue yet. Come on, 8 people who are online. I'm sure there's some kind of question you guys have about the church, about our faith, about anything. It doesn't have to be about Pascha or Holy Week. It can be really any question you have, things you don't understand, sacraments, history of the church, liturgy, services, why we do the things we do. It can really be anything. I know there's a million questions out there. Maybe people can't think of them on the spot, but yeah. I'll give it another minute and then we'll just start. Okay. Well, there's about 12 of us, so I'm going to start. So it's about 5 after 12. So I'll get going, and then when Tina joins, she joins. Okay, so I'll go with, I just got a question here live, and we'll answer this one first. It says, is there a proper way to fast? Vegan, vegetarian? Yeah, so that's actually an easy question to answer. So think of it this way. The Orthodox Church always gives us the ideal. So like, what is the best way you can fast? And then there are like, different levels on how far we can go to achieve that ideal. So what is the ideal? The ideal is completely vegan, right? So that means no meat, no dairy products, and some days no oil, and so the level that you go to is kind of like how strict you want to be and how focused you want to be on your spirituality and how much you want to restrict the amount of food that you take in, right? So it's not a matter of, meat being evil or dairy being evil or even oil. It's a matter of like, with every level, you're restricting more and more things that you can actually prepare, right? Like especially, not eating meat, but being able to have milk, not that hard. You can eat a lot of things that have milk in them. But then when you restrict milk and dairy, which includes cheese and all the other things, that restricts a bunch of foods, right? And then when you restrict oil, well, that's really hard. Like, then you're getting down to like, boiled things and fruits and vegetables and raw fruits and things like that. So it's just really a level of intensity, right? So the ideal is pure vegan. And some days, on stricter days, no oil. But I would say that if you've never fasted before, I would start slow. I would always consult with a priest, with hopefully the person you're confessing to, and he'll help you like a personal trainer does. He'll ease you into the fasting, right? So he'll say, maybe start with no meat and eat everything else and see how you do for 40 days for a big fast. And then if you do well with that, then you can start incorporating on the next fast, like for example, if you never fasted before and you tried to do the full 40 days for Pascha, and let's say you just did meat, okay? So you didn't eat meat for 40 days, but you had milk and everything else and dairy, and then it went pretty well. Well, then the next fast, which would be the Apostles' fast, or maybe the Dormition of the Virgin Mary fast in August, maybe you could ask, you could add more, you do the dairy and then see how that goes, right? So it's about building up to doing the full fast, right? But the full fast is definitely vegan, and sometimes no oil as well. So that's the answer to that one. Let me answer one of them from our online, from the website. From the email. From the email first, and then I'll come back to your live questions here. So one question says, what is the history of the Paschal hours? Thoughts of continuing it post-Bright Week. So I'm assuming the question, so the Paschal hours, there are on Holy Friday morning, we read what are called the royal hours. And some people think that the hours are just like, because they don't really see them any other time of the year, they think that that's the only time that we do them, and they're indicative of, they're like a special service for Holy Week or something, or for Easter. They're not. The hours are actually part of the daily services that can be done by Orthodox Christians any day. So what are the hours? The hours are basically small prayer services that can be done at home, even without a priest. And they are based on the ancient Roman day that used to go according to the sun, right? So they didn't have like clocks back then. They had the sundials, and they went according to the position of the sun in the day. So, the day ended at sundown because that's when night came. So, it was sundown to sundown. And then the religious day, of course, even to this day, the church day also ends and begins at sundown, not at midnight, 12 midnight, like we have in modern times. That's why we do Vesper services for great feast the night before, because technically the feast has started already, right? So when you have the 15th of August, Dormition of the Virgin Mary, we start celebrating the night before at the sundown, because we do the great Vespers, the Capitabusto, and the feast has already started, right? So the hours go according to those days, to the movement of the sun, and that's why the hours are usually a difference of 6 hours from the times that we're used to now, right? So when for example, it says that it is the 6th hour, for example, in the Roman day, it's really 12 o'clock. You go 6 back, right? Because it's according to the sun, not according to midnight, right? So they would mark the main day times, the 1st hour, the 3rd hour, the 6th hour, the 9th hour, right? They would mark those times in the day, the main kind of section of the day, with prayer. Monastics still do this in the monasteries, but most of us here kind of don't understand that this is going on. But anybody can really kind of open up a prayer book, or open up what is called the Orologion, the Book of the Hours, which basically has all the basic services of the rotation of the daily services of the week. And somebody can read the hours, whether they are in Lent or whether they're in regular days of the week, right? Or regular parts of the religious year. So it's not just the hours now. Oh, here we got Tina coming online here. Hey, Tina.
Hello, sorry for being late.
That's all right. Let's see here. I'm just, there you are. Okay, Tina has joined us. There we go. Hi, Tina. All right. That's good. You're a little bright, but we can hear you.
Better than being dark, I suppose.
There, a little bit. There we go. A little better?
Perfect.
All right, good. Thank God you're here. And there's Heidi, your son. Very nice. Okay,
working from home, your father, working from home.
That's okay. So I'm just answering a question about the royal hours during Holy Week, and whether they can be continued during the rest of the week and the rest of the time outside of Easter. And I was just saying that the hours are just actually technically normal daily services that people could read at home, just like when you read small compline, or you could read Orthros, matins, the morning prayers in the morning on your own, You can also read the hours. So that's the answer that I was answering from from WhatsApp actually that came in.
Awesome.
And I answered the first question, which was about what's the proper way to fast, as you can see in the comments there. And now, what's the next one by? I think there's one from Alicia here.
Yeah. So Alicia's question is, where can we find written work from Jesus' apostles that are not in the Bible?
So okay. So basically, there are certain works. The ones that we have in the Bible, as we've said before, the books that are included in the 27 books of the New Testament, for example, those are the books that are authenticated by the church. They're part of our holy tradition. They're generally agreed upon to be authentic and to be from the actual authors. There's a lot of other writings you can find, other books, what are called apocryphal works. And apocryphal works mean basically works that are outside of the biblical canon, outside of the official text of the Bible. Some of them are authentic in the sense that they may be from some of the apostles, but they are not essential to the main story of Christ, right? So they could be, for example, like writings, like, for example, most of the feast days of the Virgin Mary, and the life of the Virgin Mary is not included in the New Testament, but we have them in, the Evangelion of Thomas and other certain apocryphal works where they're considered to be authentic, but they're not inside the canon because they weren't really essential to the immediate life of Christ, which is what the New Testament is there to do. It's there to reveal to you who the Messiah is, right? So there are some apocryphal works that are profitable to read, and there are also some apocryphal works that are forgeries. They're written by other people, later generations, and they're attributed to apostles, but they're not really by those apostles. They're written by other people, and sometimes they contain heretical teachings and things like that by other groups that were outside of the church. So it's really confusing, and this is why it's not that you shouldn't read apocryphal works. I can do some digging if you want, and I can try to find maybe a list of like profitable, good apocryphal works that one can read that are edifying and spiritually edifying. But not all apocryphal works are good to read because some of them are heretical and some of them are from other sources that are not, not part of the church tradition. They're by like heretical groups that were trying to kind of create forgeries and lend credence to their own works by giving them names of apostles or followers of Christ. So you have to be careful which ones you read and which ones you don't read.
And a follow-up to that was, are any of them translated to English?
Yeah. Most stuff is translated to English now. But I'll try and make a note, and I'll try to post in the Father Ted Talks group on Facebook. I'll try to find profitable ones, and then I'll try to post them there because it's gonna take me some time to dig that up. But I'll do my best. I'm gonna make a note of it right now so I don't forget.
Okay, so the next question that was up is, what are the prayers that people should be saying for the 40 days after Pascha?
Okay, so so like the prayers, so we follow the same, so nothing changes as far as the basic structure of our prayer life, right? So, if we were reading Orthodox before or morning prayers before, we read them again afterwards, right? The only difference is that we add Christos Anesti, right? So when we start our prayers, we should chant Christos Anesti 3 times, and then we continue on with our main prayers. Like, so for example, if anybody were watching the service this morning, we started with Orthodox in the morning, right? So Orthodox, Matins in English, but Orthodox, which is the morning prayers before liturgy. We started at the beginning. What did I do? Instead of saying just, blessed is our God, always now and forever, and to the ages of ages, amen. And then we start the service as we would start it. We insert Christos Anesti 3 times. We chanted that, and then we continued on, right? And of course, like, there are hymns in different services that have to do with Easter as well, and with the resurrectional period, the Pentecostarion, as it's called, which is the time of the Pentecost, the 50 days after Easter, and all the hymns that we chant. And as I said, and I had posted on the Facebook group, the Ages Initiatives. If you Google Ages Initiatives, it's a really great website. Ages, like the age, AGES, Ages Initiatives. It's a really great website where you can download daily the services of the church, and they're already preset for you in PDF form. You can download them in Greek, English. You can download them versions which are Greek and English side by side. It's what I use on my iPad during services, and it has all the hymns there. So you can it does all the work for you, And all you got to do is just read through it. And it's got your matins, it's got your liturgy, sometimes it's got the comp line at night. So follow that, because the easiest way to follow the special hymns and things like that are in thing. But really, you continue the same prayers. You just add your Christos Anesti at the beginning, and at the end, instead of saying Viefchon ton Agion Pateron Imon, we say that. We say, to the prayers of our Holy Fathers, Lord Jesus Christ, our God, have mercy on us and save us. That's kind of like the end hymn, the end prayer that we say when we finish our prayers. Instead of saying that during the Paschal season, we say, Christ is risen from the dead, trampling down death by death, and upon those in the tombs bestowing life. Truly, he is risen. The end, right?
That's an amazing resource. Now, here's a kind of a practical question that you and I have talked about before in the past. So I have downloaded services on my various devices, and I've asked you, I've said, is it proper to bring my device to church and follow along with the service? So do you want to share what sort of you had told me about that?
Yeah, so I would say, I'm kind of on the fence with this, in the sense that as a beginning, as a start to kind of learn, if someone's not familiar with the liturgical services and somebody doesn't know anything, then if you need to use a device, use a device. But I would say that when you're live, when you're in person at church, the best thing would be to participate fully, mind, body, and soul, in the service with not looking down at a screen, right? Because that can become actually, while it seems intuitive for us today to kind of read along on a digital screen, it can actually become an impediment to actually spiritually participating, because you're sitting there, it's almost like you're following a tutorial as opposed to actually following, being completely absorbed in the divine liturgy, right? So I would say that, as a beginner, it's good to kind of start, but after a while, if we know what the liturgy is, and maybe we kind of take a look at it at home before we leave. What's the Apolitikion of the day? What's kind of the stuff that changes today? What's the feast of the day? Kind of read up on it, and then just go to church and enjoy it. Experience it and participate, sing, do whatever you can, but don't have a screen in front of you looking down, because that can become a distraction, right? So I say this a lot to catechumens, people who just convert, because a lot of times they start off kind of studying the services and they're following along, and that's totally fine. But eventually it's good to wean yourself off of that, and to kind of be, somebody who knows the service, who goes to church often, they'll know when they walk in just by listening what part of the service they're at. If they come in divine liturgy and they hear Aios o Theos, Aios Ischiros, right? They know we're doing the Trisagion hymn, and they know we're about to read the Epistle and the Gospel, right? If somebody walks in and they hear, the creed being read, I believe one God, they know that it's later in the service, and they know that, the great entrance has already happened, and the gifts have been unveiled, and we're about to consecrate, right? So you just know, bang, 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 right? But most of our people, because we don't go enough, then we may not know these things, and it's good to maybe have a resource. And we also have books in the pews as well for the liturgy. But it's a good resource. Just don't become addicted to it. That's all.
Yeah, so in this journey for me, again, having sort of learning these things more as an adult, I did find that it helped. The book absolutely helps. Now I am definitely one of those people who, when I walk in exactly as you described, I know where we are in the service, which I would not have known before. I find with the screen, it's more about being consciously aware of what's around you, and people probably think that you're texting or something in church. I just usually dim the brightness and follow along as much as I can. And it's exactly as you said. The more you go, the more of the services you do, you eventually know what's coming, and you're basically just looking at it for reference more than anything else.
Sure.
It's really helped me for sure, understanding also how to participate and when to do things and things like that.
All right.
Okay. Let's move on to the next question, which is, what happens when a person has confessed a long time ago and feels relieved from the confession? Do we still have to confess the same things?
Okay.
And the confession?
Well, the short answer is yes. You still have to confess. So the idea is that confession is not. Don't think of it as the big things I've done in my life. Okay, I went and I confessed them, and now I'm good. Because when we talk about sin, the English word sin is misleading, right? So the Greek word amartia quite literally means missing the mark, right? So think about playing darts and or shooting an arrow, you're trying to hit the bullseye, right? The bullseye is God. And every time, and just like in darts, for example, every time you deviate from the center, the further away you deviate from the center, the less points you get, right? And the bullseye is the highest points, right? So the closer you are to the bullseye, the better you are. This is the same way with the spiritual life. Christ is supposed to be at the center. That's why we say we have to live a Christ-centered life. And when we sin, we basically miss the mark. We miss following Christ fully, and we do other things, right? And so obviously, okay, some sins are bigger or smaller because they deviate us further away from the path of God, as opposed to other sins that are smaller. But sin is sin. And we do that thousands of times, even in the same day, like in our thoughts. It doesn't have to be like big ones, but every day we sin. And so because we do that, we have need of confession, right? So think of it as, think about the white clothing that we put on our baptism, and we use this symbolism in the hymns of baptism. The white robe that we put on at baptism, we try to keep that clean. We want to keep that clean. So every time we sin, it's like getting that robe dirty. There's spots on it, right? And every time you go to confession, you're basically dry cleaning it. You're cleaning the robe. You're making it white again. You're taking a spiritual shower. So you want to keep taking showers, because even though you're going to get dirty again, even though you're going to get sweaty again, you're going to perspire, you're going to do all these things, you want to keep taking showers because you want to have good hygiene. You want to keep yourself clean, right? In the same way, spiritually, we want to keep confessing often so that we have good spiritual hygiene, right? So even if it's the same stuff that we've done over and over, just keep confessing it. It's good. It just, over time, we lessen the behavior, even though we can't see it. Our spiritual father, who's objective on the outside, they see it and they can give us feedback. And we keep doing it. The trap is to think that we don't need it. And that's when we convince ourselves that being dirty is okay, or we become comfortable in being.
Okay, very thorough answer.
So.
Okay, well, here's the next question. It says, does the church have a formal position on organ and blood donation?
There's nothing wrong with it. We don't have any issue from an Orthodox point of view. And most Orthodox churches, I believe, have official statements on this. If you go to like patriarchal websites, Patriarchate of Jerusalem, Patriarchate of Alexandria, Ecumenical Patriarchate of Constantinople, they should have, I think, like position papers posted on their websites about this. But like, we don't consider organ and blood donation anything to be wrong with that. You're helping save life, and there is no greater love, as Christ says, than to lay down your life for another human being, right? So the selfless act of giving of ourselves is always a good thing. It's never a bad thing, and we're not against that. Don't get into kind of like questions or hypotheticals about, if I give a kidney away in the resurrection, why be missing a kidney? That's just ridiculous. Like, or if I die and, I donate some of my organs before I get buried to help somebody else because, let's say, I was young or whatever and I can save some people, will I be missing those organs in the resurrection? That's not how it works. God, our bodies all decompose, they go back into the earth, and then in the resurrection, God recreates everything again, right? So God can recreate whatever he wants, but our selfless act of helping another human being is always blessed by the church, and there's no problem with that.
Right. Okay. Question from Ariadne. The question is, can you please talk about some of the sightings of Jesus after the resurrection? Okay, so
resurrection accounts. So there are many sightings, but we have. If you notice, if you go to Orthros, if you ever wake up early enough to go to church on Sunday and you go to Orthros, right? So the morning prayers, Orthros starts at 8:45 in the morning. Liturgy starts at 10. Okay, these days it's been a little earlier because we have nobody in the church. We finish earlier. Like today we finished like at 10:30, 10 because we like an hour earlier because there was like nobody here. There's no processions, like things like that. But Orthros starts around 8:45 or 8:30 in the morning, because it takes over an hour to do the morning prayers. In the Orthros, there's always what is called the Eothino Evangelion, right? The morning gospel reading. It's not the liturgy gospel reading later. It's the morning gospel reading. And the Eothino Evangelion, there are 11 of them. There are 11 main resurrectional accounts in the New Testament, main kind of like events that Christ, it says that Christ revealed himself to the disciples and many different disciples many, many more times. It's just the ones that are actually specifically chronicled in detail are 11 main events, and you can read those. So like and they cycle through every Sunday. So this is the first Sunday after Pascha. So we have the first Eothino read, right? and then after that, next Sunday will be the second Eothino, third, fourth, fifth, all the way through to the 11th, and then it starts again from the first, right? So it's an 11-week cycle of the morning, and they're always the resurrectional accounts on Sundays, because Sunday is the day of resurrection, always. it's always the exception, right? Sunday, you always, like even in Lent, if you notice, we have purple all week, but on Sunday, we wear white, right? We change the colors because Sunday is always the day of resurrection. So Sunday is always dedicated to the resurrection, and we always read the morning gospel is always one of the 11 resurrectional accounts. So I would say just Google the Eothina or the morning resurrectional gospels. There'll be 11 of them, and you can read those and you can see the kind of the different types and how they're chronicled through the 4 gospels.
Okay. Okay, just a question that popped up here now is, can you discuss the separation and beliefs of the Protestant church and the Orthodox church?
Whoa, that's a big one.
That's a big one.
Okay, so I can't answer it completely because when you say the Protestant church, it's like it's one church. Well, there's not just one Protestant church. There are in North America right now over 30,000 different Protestant denominations. Okay,
Whoa.
That's 30,000. That's right. So that's 5 zeros. Okay, sorry, that's 4 zeros. It's 4 zeros. And so every one of them believes something different, and that's a problem, right? So they're all fragmented, right? So when we say Protestant, that's like a really, really broad topic, and you say, okay, well, which Protestants are we talking about? Are we talking about mainline Protestants? Are we talking about evangelicals? Are we talking about Reform, non-Reform? Like there's all these different types of Protestants and just different kind of groups that are branching out from everywhere, right? And so it's really kind of almost impossible for me to answer that question right now because it's just there's so many. I would say I would give you just a short kind of answer to how it started, and then from there I will give you a link to a phenomenal podcast that you can listen to, Orthodoxy and Heterodoxy, and a great book that everybody should buy, also by the same name, which kind of maps out all the different kind of permutations of denominationalism and how it all went wrong, right? So basically, like if you look at the history of the church, you'll see that there is the one church, right, from the time of Christ, and for about 1,000 years, you had the one Holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, right, like what we call the Orthodox Church, right? And then in 1054 AD, you have the first great schism, which is between the East and the West becoming what is known as Roman Catholic, the East remaining what we call Orthodox, and then from the Catholics, then in another 500 years, in the 1500s, you have a Catholic priest monk named Martin Luther, who was a German monk, and he did not like a lot of the abuses that were kind of being done by the Vatican at the time. There were a lot of issues going on. And one of them was the use of indulgences, which is kind of like telling people that they could pay money to the church as a donation to get time out of purgatory, which was a created doctrine that we don't believe in the Catholic Church. That after you die, you go to a kind of a middle state where you suffer for your sins for a certain amount of years. And they were kind of saying, well, you could purchase indulgences to get yourself out of years of purgatory and things like that, and different stuff like that. So this specific Catholic monk, he disagreed, and priest, he disagreed with this and many other practices, and he was in Wittenberg in Germany, and he wrote up this kind of like list of things he disagreed with, 95 things exactly. His 95 theses, as it's called, and he posted them on the door of the Wittenberg Cathedral, thus starting or sparking what we call the Protestant Reformation. And he basically began this kind of movement which broke away from the Roman Catholic Church, and he was protesting, hence Protestantism, against Roman Catholicism, and began kind of like this new group. And the issue is that then from there you have kind of like the Classical Reformation, then you have Radical Reformation, more splintering. So that's kind of like the short answer. And all of them disagreed and had different reasons why they disagreed, and cut out things from the faith and added things to the faith, and it's a big mess, right? So it's harder to go into more detail right now in this format. But I will post the podcast is Orthodoxy and Heterodoxy. It's on Ancient Faith Radio. I will post the link in the description after we finish this video, and also on the Facebook group. And I would highly recommend it because those podcasts, there's a whole series that goes through what the Orthodox believe, how we contrast with the Roman Catholics, and then how we contrast with the Protestants. And it takes you historically all the way through. It's really fascinating. I've heard it through like 5-6 times. It's by Father Andrew Stephen Daymake in the United States, a really, really phenomenal podcaster and great author. And he wrote the book Orthodoxy and Heterodoxy, which is the book version of the podcast, which is also a really good reference guide. So.
And just on that, I actually in university studied the Reformation, and it's fascinating in that historical time period. Christos, who asked the original question, wanted to follow up and just say he was more referring to Baptists. So I don't know if you wanted to clarify that here, or if that's clarified in the resources that you provided.
It is clarified in the resources, and I don't want to go into it right now, just because it will take a very long time to kind of go into where Baptists come from, why they believe what they believe, and how different it is. I will post the link in the group, and I do suggest you go look. He does a better job of explaining it than I do, and it will take way too long. Like, we'll be here for another 45 minutes, and then we won't be able to answer anybody else's questions. So I'm sorry I can't go further into that because it's a lot.
But sounds like some great resources, and you referred to Father Andrew Didache before, so obviously a really good source.
Yeah, he's really good. He's on he's on one of my videos. I interviewed him for one of my Father TED Talk videos on this channel. You can go back and look at it as well. So
awesome. Okay, well, and maybe he would be willing to do another chat in the future, because it seems, like I said, his name comes up a lot here.
Who? What?
Maybe he would be willing to do another chat with you at some point, because there does seem to be a lot of questions that we end up sort of referring to him.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Another question that came up was, I want to give someone, this is from Miss Cipriana 1, I want to give someone a Bible, but don't know which one to get. There's so many. Would the King James Bible be okay?
Yeah, somebody asked this a few sessions ago. So yeah, the King James is okay. As I said, the original Greek is always the best, but of course, if we don't know ancient Greek, you're going to have to rely on a translation, and translations are never perfect, but there are some better than others. So I would say the Revised Standard Version is one of the best English translations directly from the Greek. It's the most scholarly out there. Or the New Revised Standard Version, the NRSV. The King James is good too. So, it's not the worst, right? But if you really want like the best English right now, it's probably the RSV, the Revised Standard Version. It's even better than the New Revised Standard Version, which is kind of like a little more modern. But the older one, the RSV, which is harder to find in print, that's a little better. And that's probably, for me, the best English word-for-word translation of the original Greek.
Awesome. Okay, next question from Alicia. Did St. Peter the Apostle actually go to Rome? Many people say he did, while others say he did not. It is said there that there is no mention of St. Peter visiting Rome in the Bible.
Yeah, so according to our tradition, he did go. There is a little bit of a controversy about this in the sense that, so where does the controversy start? It's not that whether Peter went to Rome or not. The big question is, was he ever Bishop of Rome? Right? So the Roman Catholics maintain that he was bishop in Rome, right, of the Christian community, and hence they base the apostolic succession of the Pope of Rome from the fisherman, from Peter, right? But in the tradition, there is no evidence that he was ever the bishop. Like, a lot of the early fathers of the church do speak about Peter martyring in Rome, okay, on Vatican Hill. So there's no problem with that. There's no problem with him going to Rome and later in his life, right? So there are conflicting historical accounts, but we don't have an issue with Peter going to Rome. The issue is, was he ever a bishop there, right? Because we know that there were bishops in the Christian community in Rome before Peter ever visited Rome, right? We know that Paul went there before Peter, and that Paul was greeted by the community in Rome, and there was already a bishop there, right? So there are already bishops in Rome. There's a line of bishops in Rome. And we have no evidence that Peter ever acted as a bishop. He might have visited there as an apostle, preached to the local community, and was martyred there. We do have evidence that he was, for a temporary period of time, acted as the bishop in Antioch. And even the Roman Catholics have a feast of the seat of Peter in Antioch. Like, so there is a time when he acted as a bishop in Antioch, but we have no historical evidence that he was ever a bishop in Rome. There's a good book by Father John Meyendorff, who's the former dean of St. Vladimir Seminary. He's passed away now, which is called The Primacy of Peter, and he talks a lot about this. And I'll try to link that as well. Are you writing this down, Tina? Because I got The Primacy of Peter, Father John Meyendorff. Write that down for me, just because I can't write it down as I'm answering right now.
Yep.
And also write down that I need to put apocryphal books links, and also Orthodoxy and Heterodoxy. Just so I can remember afterwards, so I can type everything. Thank you. Maybe you can text it to me.
That's what I'm here for.
Thank you. That's why I pay you the big bucks to produce.
That's right. That's right. You got it.
You get the extra didoro.
Don't tell the Yayavis that. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. All right. So.
Okay.
Who else is here?
Go for the next question.
Can I answer something from the Gmail account?
Sure can.
Okay, because I got 2 questions. Let's see here. Oh, I got 2 questions from the Gmail as well, and I think I also might have from the Gmail account. That's all. So 2 questions. One is, how many different liturgical vestments are used in the Orthodox Church? Do you wear certain colors on certain days? And is this standard across the board amongst the different Orthodox churches? Sorry, I know this was more a 3-in-1 question. That's the first question. It's a great question. It's easy to answer. Yes, there are liturgical colors. While not everybody always follows them, in the sense that some churches just don't have the money to buy different colors for every single feast, like smaller communities and things like that. But there are liturgical colors. They're almost standard across the board. Some jurisdictions have slightly different colors, but generally speaking, it's 90%. It usually follows the same. So the colors are gold or white for Christ, right? So it's the royal, right? So resurrectional, white colors, gold. So if it's a despotic feast of Christ, despotiko, you're going to see gold or white, and then you're going to have blue for the Virgin Mary. So blue is always her color. So you'll notice that when we do paraclesis services, when we do salutation services, the priest usually wears blue vestments, and usually puts blue like on the icon and covers the altar with blue. Blue for the Virgin Mary, white or gold for Christ, red for the martyrs, for blood, right? Although on Mount Athos, for some reason also, the monks like to wear red for Pascha, right? Because it's the symbol of the Passion as well as the resurrection, because monks place emphasis on the Passion, right? On the martyrdom. They like to wear bright red even for the resurrection as opposed to white, but you can even see white. So you have white or gold for Christ, blue for the Virgin Mary, red for the martyrs, and green usually is for the Holy Spirit, the Holy Cross, and also for the monastic saints, Ossi, right? So monastic saints like Saint Anthony the Great, things like that, we usually wear green. So I think that's all of them. Yeah. In the Russian churches and the Slavic churches, sometimes during Lent, you won't just see purple, because also purple, I forgot to say, purple is during the Lenten season. In the Russian churches, you can even see black. You rarely will ever see this in the Orthodox Church. Black is actually a Western influence, like the Catholics use it. And there was a little bit of a Western influence under Peter the Great, who was one of the Tsars who loved the West in the Russian church. And there was an influence there. So you'll see in Slavic churches, they'll have black vestments for Lent, for Holy Week and things like that. But in the Greek churches, you will rarely ever see black. You'll see usually purple. So again, just as a quick recap, gold or white for Christ, blue for the Virgin Mary, red for the martyrs, green for the Holy Spirit and the monastic saints and the Holy Cross, and purple for Great Lent. So those are the main liturgical colors, and they're meant to be there as visual cues for people, right? So especially when you think about like in the older times, where people maybe in the medieval times, people maybe would be more illiterate, they wouldn't know. You come into the church, you see colors, and you know what season you're in. So if you come in and you see blue everywhere, it's like, oh, it's a feast day of the Virgin Mary, right? You come in and you see gold, oh, it's Sunday, or it's the feast of Christ. Oh, you see red, it's a martyr's feast, right? So very, very easy to know what's going on in the church because there's colorful visual cues. That's the one question.
Okay, go ahead. You had another one in the Gmail, I think, right?
Yeah, the other one is, mourners are known to wear black after someone dies to help express their grief. I have seen variations of length of time, depending on whether it's immediate family or not, example, spouse, child, parent, sibling, etc. Is there a specified time that one should be wearing black, or is this more of a cultural thing or as opposed to a church custom? Cultural. It's cultural, right? So nothing wrong with wearing black, but there is no canon. There is no official church position on grieving and what you wear during grieving, right? So you're going to find different cultural traditions in different cultures, even across the Orthodox world, right? Like the Greeks, for example, in the old days, men would not shave for 40 days in mourning until the 40-day memorial, and then they would shave, right? So you would have all these beards, right? You would have and people wear black. You have the traditions of like widows wearing black for the rest of their lives, wearing black for a year. I always tell people there is no official rule from the church. There are cultural expectations, but even those can become, they can be dangerous in the sense that people mourn in very specific ways in their own way. There are some commonalities in the way people mourn, but mourning is a very personal thing. So I always tell people, mourn the way you need to mourn. And if that means wearing black for a long period of time because you feel like you have to wear black, then do it. But if you feel that you're afraid that other people are going to judge you, or you're doing it because other people are imposing that on you, you shouldn't do it for those reasons. Because, and we should not impose these things on other people or shame them like they used to do in the village. Because it's not a disrespect for people if somebody does not wear black for a year or, for the rest of their lives, right? They used to be seen as that in the village. It was disrespectful to, or disrespecting the memory of the person who's passed away. It is not disrespectful. It is not, or no dancing or no going to parties. It's the way people feel, right? So if some people feel they want to honor their loved ones by continuing on with their lives or being the best they can be in whatever they do. Like, I teach traditional Greek dance, right? So when my grandfather, for example, who I was very, very close with, passed away, I was still teaching dance the next week, not because I didn't love him or I wasn't sad, but because he would want me to continue teaching and doing what I love to do. I didn't see it as a disrespect to anybody, right? I didn't stop teaching my classes and everything like that because my grandfather passed away. So
nor did you stop grieving. Doesn't mean you weren't grieving.
Correct, yeah. But some people don't feel like it, so that's fine too. But there's no specific rule from the Orthodox Church on that.
This is a classic example of ideology, right? Of the things that we kind of started this whole Father TED Talks thing about. And you touched on it lightly, but, we had asked in a previous TED Talks about going to weddings and funerals and things like, weddings rather, and baptisms after a funeral. And you had said very clearly that it's about how you feel, but that if anything, it's more important to actually go to these weddings because this is about a couple entering the future.
Yeah, and there's also like other cultural expectations that become superstitions. So if you're pregnant, don't go to a funeral. Why? Nothing bad will happen to the baby, right?
No.
Funerals are beautiful, and they're a celebration of the resurrection for us as Orthodox Christians. So, but for some reason there was a superstition in the village. If you're pregnant, don't go to the funeral because death will find your family or your child. If you are, I don't know, like if somebody has died, you can't do certain things, or if you're going to get married in the year that someone passes away, don't go to the funeral, or don't get married in that year that a family member passed away because it's bad luck for your marriage. All this weird stuff you're going to hear, none of it's Orthodox. It's completely superstitious, and it actually goes against our faith because if we actually believe the things that we say and we pray, we have total trust in God, why would we be afraid of these kind of things?
Yeah, if it sounds wrong, it probably is.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, did you have another question in the Gmail? I've got another one here.
No, that's all I got online. I mean, for the
Okay, so we've got one here from Ariadne, and it says, are sins actually weighted? So, for example, is the sin of killing worse than disobeying your parents? You kind of touched on it earlier.
Yeah, so the short answer is that from God's point of view, he doesn't distinguish between sins in the sense that he forgives, and we know this from the hymns, we know this from the scripture, right? God, if there's true repentance, God forgives all sins, doesn't matter what they are, right? If there's true repentance. So if we truly turn to him, we truly feel bad for what we've done, and we also make an effort to change. We repent, we change our mind, the way we think and the way we act, God will forgive us, right? And we know this because he forgives the holiest of people, and he also forgives the thief on the cross. He forgives the harlot who there was going to be stoned. He forgives everybody in the same way. He doesn't have more conditions on one person over another, okay? So for God, doesn't distinguish between sin, right? For us as human beings, on our side, on the human side, we do weigh sins. And why? Not because we want to sit there and say, you're really, really bad, you're worse than the other person. No. It is the effect that it has on other human beings, right? So that's where we kind of weigh the severity of sin, not because you're a worse person or that, but it's the effect that it has on society and also the effect that it has on our psyche, right? So for example, if I steal a stick of gum, it's theft, right? It's stealing. It's one of the 10 commandments. I shouldn't do it, right? But stealing a stick of gum, the effect that it has, although it's not good, the effect that it has on the store owner that I'm stealing it from or on my psyche is going to be minimal compared to killing a human being, taking the life of another human being. When I take the life of another human being, not only have I destroyed their life, I've destroyed their family's life, because everyone will be the grieving that it will, and the pain that it will inflict, but even the remorse and the guilt that I will feel will be greater, right? So the impact on society and on myself, so it's gonna take me longer to repent. It's gonna take me longer to work out those feelings. It's gonna take me longer to repent from it. The process of repentance will be longer, right? Because the sin is a heavier sin from our point of view. God's gonna forgive me no matter what if I turn to him. He will forgive me. And that's the comforting thing. And that's why I always tell people who are dealing with, and all of us who we deal with our difficult sins, is that it's forgiving ourselves that's the hard thing. It's coming to the point of being able to accept ourselves as sinners, to really own what we've done, and then to be able to move past it with the love of God, to understand that he loves us no matter what, but we can't look in the mirror. So that's the difficulty, that it's our own conscience that weighs down on us. It's not God pushing down on us. It's our own conscience that weighs down on us, and we have to be able to get past that. It's very, very, very difficult.
Okay. We have another question that just came through from Evan, which is, what is the church's position on middle names?
We don't really have a position on middle names. It's
I mean, my dad says that we Greeks don't have middle names. Doesn't apply.
Well, the Greeks, just culturally, Greeks didn't really have middle names. Like, actually, that's not true. In Greece, usually the middle name is your father's name, because the way they track families on birth certificates or on official paperwork, like even if you come to the church right now and you ask me for some kind of letter, you want to get married in Greece, let's say, and you want a letter of good standing from the church, so they want to know that you're an Orthodox Christian, I'm going to write, I verify that Constantina Krepas, the daughter of, right, Thanasi, right? It's Thanasi.
Thanasi, yeah.
Yeah, so Thanasi, right? So I have to say the name of the father, because that's how they track. So in the old days, like the paperwork, it was usually your father's name that was your kind of middle name, right? So it's like, you know,
as an identifier.
Tina Athanasios or Athanasia Krepas, right? But it's not the same as kind of like in the Western world, where you had multiple names, which was kind of like a nobility thing in the past. So that's why most of us don't have middle names, whereas in the West people do. But that has nothing to do with our faith. It's just it's completely cultural, and yeah, the church has nothing to say about that.
Okay, on that, we have no more questions on the thing, but one question that's come up is sort of in my mommy circles is about birth control. Now, let me clarify and whittle that down. What I mean by that is, the question is, in Orthodox couples, in families who have had multiple children, and for whatever reason don't want to have more children, financial or whatever the reason may be, what is the church's position on that?
Well, that's a big one.
I know.
You're going to get, excuse me. You're going to get different approaches to the question. Sorry, and that's because there is not, as opposed to other churches that have sometimes blanket solutions. The Orthodox Church does not have a lot of blanket solutions. The Orthodox Church doesn't believe in blanket solutions because every situation is different. It's the same thing with birth control. I think that anytime, so I'll start off with this. The gift of co-creating is one of the greatest gifts and miracles that God gives us, right? The ability to produce life. And when I say co-create, I say that we are partners with God. God provides the ability gives us the ability to do what he does, which is amazing when you think about it, to produce new life. And he partners with us, right? So he provides the soul, he provides the ability, and we also obviously make the choice, right, to create a child with another human being. So this is a great, great gift. And it's perhaps one of the greatest gifts, I would say, up there in the top, if you had to say the top 5, free will being the number 1, right? But the ability to pray, the ability to, know that, to know about our own death and to understand the afterlife, and to to philosophize about metaphysics and things like that, and to things that animals can't do. We're cognizant of who we are, and we have self-awareness, and we're conscious. We have consciousness, which we can't even define. So we have all these amazing gifts. So the gift of procreation is a phenomenal gift. So anytime that we contemplate getting rid of that gift, I think we have to be very, very careful, and we have to analyze we have to sit down with our husbands or our wives, and I would say even we should speak with our spiritual fathers, which we don't do, and we should really, really think about what are the reasons, what are the motivations behind, giving that gift back. That's how I approach it, right? So there are some situations where it's appropriate. Okay, there are some extreme situations where birth control is the way to go. It could be for illness, it could be for extreme poverty, it could be for a number of reasons. But I'm also of the mind, and this is now my personal opinion, that I think that we overuse it. We overuse it, and I think that it's become a free-for-all. Because we feel that instead of trusting in God and trusting in whatever life brings us, we have become accustomed to controlling everything, right? So we like to control our income. We like to control the house we live in. We like to control the amount of children we have. We like to control our finances. We like to control how many vacations we can take. There's a lot of things that we have within our control right now. And that's not necessarily a good thing, because it sometimes hinders us from kind of being grateful and accepting things as they come and having the strength and fortitude. So there has to be a balance. And so it's a very difficult question. And that's why I think that these kind of questions should always be in conjunction with one spiritual father, where you work out and say, okay, well, why don't I want to have more kids? And is it a good enough reason? And is there a reason for me to stop this gift that God has given me? Like when people tell me about not just birth control, for example, like, medicinal birth control, but permanent birth control, right? For males and females, vasectomies, tubulation, things like that, Again, those kind of things, it's like we should really think hard before we do things to our bodies that inhibit life. Okay, and there needs to be prayer there, and there also needs to be a gratefulness for what we have, and also for what other people don't have, because there are a lot of people out there who don't have that gift, who don't have that ability, and they would kill to have that ability, and some of us just throw it away because, well, for reasons that sometimes are a little frivolous, in my opinion. So that I'll stop it there. I think that
I think the overall message there is that it's a decision that needs to be made with prayer, and ideally in conjunction with your spiritual father.
Correct. And
just like you would have a discussion with your medical doctor.
Correct. Yeah.
It's important to have with your spiritual doctor.
There are a lot of factors, right? There are a lot of factors there. I guess the main motivation should never be selfish. So that's the key, right? Like, is my motivation in life to do anything? Forget about birth control. Anything. Is it a purely selfish endeavor? Is it coming from a selfish place? Like, is it coming because I don't want to suffer, or I like to have a comfortable life, this and that? Is that the motivation? Over doing what's right? Or is there like a really good reason? For example, there's a medical reason. There is extreme poverty, and I will literally be on the street, right? If I have another child, like there are those situations, right? So those are we have to be honest with ourselves when we ask those questions. And then if we don't have a good answer, well then, we should be thinking.
That's your answer.
Yeah, that's your answer. I don't know if that's a good answer.
So unless you have any other questions, Father, we have no more here. We can kind of wrap it up there. How do you feel?
I feel good. It's 5:02, so we're almost at the hour. So it's perfect.
So we would, Father Ted has suggested that we do this every Sunday right after liturgy. People are already kind of online anyway. If you have any feedback for us about, we cannot obviously accommodate every time request. Father Ted's got kids, I've got kids, got lots of things going on, lots of, balls being juggled around. So, but, let us know if this is a great time. We had 30 people on, so it seems like it's a good time. Kind of engaged post-service. We'll keep it going, and we're thinking once a week until this quarantine is over.
Yeah. I was thinking, let's keep doing it Sundays. It's just easy for people to remember, at least for now, because as long as the quarantine is going, hopefully not too long for now, but as long as it's going, there won't be anything going on after church. So as soon as I finish church, 12 o'clock is a really good time. Have enough time to clean up liturgy, finish everything up, and then set up for this. So if if you guys are good with that, we'll stick to that for now. Obviously, when the quarantine lifts and the churches reopen, Sunday won't be a good day anymore, because then Sunday becomes the crazy time. So many services and sacraments, all this kind of stuff going on. It's one of the busiest days of the week, if not the busiest. And we'll have to move it over to another day. But for now, I think we should stick to the Sundays. We have a good turnout. More people, I think, will know if it's consistently the same. So we'll do next Sunday again. Obviously, I'll post reminders all over Facebook and stuff like that. And so.
Yeah, and the recording will always be posted post session. And please email us your questions at Fr.TEDTalks@gmail.com.
Yeah.
And we'll get to them always. And then if not, join us live and spread the word. If you know people who are interested, please let them know that we're doing this. I find a lot of people are kind of wanting to ask questions, or at least know what's out there and they don't know. So, spread the word.
Yeah, spread the word. Subscribe to the channel, because the more subscriptions that we have on the channel, the more it opens up functionality as well. YouTube is interesting because they allow. I didn't know these things until now. I'm starting to kind of get into it more, but. The more, for example, subscriptions you have, it allows you to do more things. Like, for example, our church channel, we have, let's say, 450 subscribers on there, right? Not bad, but you can't stream from a mobile device. So if you go somewhere like on site, if we go to a service or we go on a trip or something, we can't do a live stream unless you have 1,000 subscribers, right? Whereas on Father TED Talks, we have 2,000, 2.5, almost 3,000 subscribers, which is really great. So we can go mobile. It gives you more functionality for free. It allows you to do kind of little things with your channel that you can't do. So the more people that we get subscribing, not just liking, but actually subscribe, then you also get notifications automatically when we go online. So please, tell your friends, subscribe to the channel. And also, if you're on Facebook, go to the Father TED Talks group, because I post a lot of content in there and links and things like that, and also make announcements primarily on Facebook, and especially through there, but also on other sections. So those are the two kind of go-to places you can go to find out more information and follow along. So.
Okay, and I've got the links. I'm going to send them over to Father Ted, as always, posting resources. So that's it for today, and we hope you guys have a great week.
Yeah.
And we'll see you again soon.
And Christos Anesti, Christ is risen.
Christos Anesti. See you guys.
Bye-bye. That was